Hello there, lads and ladies. Oh, welcome back finally to another tattoo story time. Been well over a month or two since the last one. I honestly didn't feel like doing them at the time because I was so racked with like diseases after disease and then an infection after infection, and I wanted to take some time really to focus on healing and some other stuff, like with my Evil Within stuff. Finally got back into a little bit of DLC, DBD for you guys to enjoy. So you'll be seeing a lot more of that, at least until April rolls around. Then when April comes around, we'll be diving into Hogwarts Legacy. And speaking of Hogwarts Legacy, I got me Ravenclaw top on, straight up, to support the upcoming game that will be releasing on PS4 sooner or later. I would play it on PS5. It's just, I don't know if it's that great to switch over to another console, because I hear like they're actually going to be releasing like teasers of the PS6 on sooner or later. So I don't know why they keep doing that so quickly. It seems a little bit rushed in a certain sense. But yeah, we're here today to talk about two very special ravens on my chest, and that is of Huginn and Muninn. Now I decided to get Muninn, of course, on one shoulder and Huginn on the other, because you guys know as much as I do, I love my Norse mythology, I love history basically. So when I first read about Muninn and Huginn, it really interested me, like the idea that Odin was able to control these ravens that he could send throughout the world, basically, where he it's for some backstory into Odin. Odin was basically the all father of like knowledge and thought, basically. You know how Muninn, of course, was the raven for memory, and Huginn was the raven for thought, basically. And every morning he would send them out before breakfast to spy on his enemies, look around the world, seek knowledge, so on and so forth. Because that was his thing. He was so like interested in gaining so much knowledge that he ended up hanging himself, I believe, on the world tree in a certain sense. I think on one of the trees in Midgard, to go to Hell, I believe, to learn as much as he can there, until Hel, Loki's daughter, I believe, got so sick of him that she basically just kicked him out of Hell and gave him his life back. So the story goes, basically. Also how the story is iterated over the years, basically. But it's such an interesting story. And Huginn and Muninn basically are kind of representations of two birds that I actually took care of when I was in Plumpton College. And if you don't know, Plumpton College is a eastern or southeastern college where we focus mostly on agricultural studies, animal care, horticulture, basically the wilderness farms life and so on and so forth. And we had these owls that we'd always take care of. And we even had a Harris hawk, which somehow got out, but it still flies over the downs from time to time. If you don't know, the downs are basically the little hills just over yonder of our college, basically. And there were these two little raven chicks that we actually picked up because they were basically sick in a certain sense, and because they were ill, they couldn't like fly. Basically, they couldn't basically muster the strength to get out of the nest and basically take flight in a certain sense. So the mother basically abandoned them, and the father didn't want anything to do with them. So what we did, we took them in, we raised them to at least about 2 or so years, and then we let them loose again. But just like the Harris hawk, we call him Tony for some strange reason, they basically came back. They'd always try and get us to feed them from time to time. We always like cave in, basically. I love those two little birds. We called them Randy and Rwanda for some strange reason, because even though they were roughly about, from the looking at them, one was a bit bigger, although mostly males are a little bit more buffer, depending on how much nutrients they get. But Rwanda, I think, was actually the smallest one by about 2 inches smaller or something like that. But the interesting thing with Rwanda is that she was so much smarter. Rwanda basically would easily like use items around us to like she would take certain items for her nest, for her chicks, basically. And we've seen this. She would take certain items that would be used to kind of protect the nest in a certain sense. So if she sees something sharp, she would use that. So if a bird did come and attack her nest, it would be there kind of as like a deterrent for other birds. So if it landed on it, then these kind of screws. So sometimes she would like take glass from the ground and then take it up to her nest and like embed it. We thought that was a bit of a danger for the chick because the chick sometimes can't tell the difference between like food and like glass, obviously. So we kind of had to go up there and check on the chick. Thankfully, it didn't eat the glass. It kind of like knew that it wasn't edible, thankfully, because even though as ravens are as intelligent as they come, the chicks are nowhere near as intelligent, but they still at least learn not to eat the glass, basically. So I kind of wanted to get these two because it was kind of like a nice little memory of those two little raven chicks from my time at Plumpton, and like the small little things that we did around kind of like benefited the wildlife around us in a certain sense. I felt like I was contributing to the life of the wilderness there, basically. So it was basically an opportunity for me to get this done and remember Randy in Rwanda, basically. I still hate that name, Randy. I feel like we should have changed it in a certain sense. Really hated that name, but hopefully those two are okay now. It's been quite a while, so more than likely they probably passed away now, but it's still a good memory to have, really, of those two. And I thought, why not get Huginn and Muninn, the two most legendary ravens, for them, basically. It's just nice to tie a real life set of birds with a fictional pair, because Huginn and Muninn are so famous because of the knowledge that they would gather for Odin in a certain sense. And I think the lesson behind how those two came to be was because Odin would actually turn children into his spies, basically, his crows in a certain sense. It's kind of a despicable thing. He's done an awful lot of despicable things over the years in the mythology of Norse mythology in a certain sense, but it's still interesting to hear nonetheless, really. That's why I love like certain mythological things in history and stuff like that. It's like I keep getting confused. I don't learn my own English mythology, but there are some interesting facts, like the one with St. George and the Dragon, I believe, because I think St. George was he was like going to a city. I can't remember which city, but it said something along the lines of like there's a dragon somewhere, and that he had to go and take care of it. I think that's the lesson behind that was that what did he said in repayment for like slaying the dragon, he'd expect them to convert to Christianity or learn Christianity or something like that, which was interesting because it seemed like a simple wish, really, but then when you think about it, it's kind of like you're kind of like forcing the people to bend the knee to a religion that they don't know in a certain sense. And like I'm an atheist, so I wouldn't like go around to like mosques and like churches saying like, oh, you must learn like atheism, like much to learn about nothing, is so I would put it, basically. So the interesting thing with that is it's funny how I would look at it and think, oh yeah, it's fine for you to go and like put your own religion onto someone, but it wouldn't be the same if I was doing it, because atheism has nothing to do with religion whatsoever, basically. But yeah, I'm getting off topic in a certain sense. I also wanted to talk about my scarlet fever before I go, because honestly, this is probably going to be one of the last tattoo story times I do. Well, I've got one more to do on my neck, and then I've also got Defa to do, so I'll probably round those up. I will probably go back into tattooing, but at a later date, I think, until I've let my mind heal from everything that's happened. So the reason why I kind of stopped it for a while was due to the fact that I had an infection on my sleeve, as you all know, basically. It was bloody awful. It felt like my hand was heavy. It like swelled up to a point where I couldn't even like bend my arm. Like when you have that twice on both arms, it gets really aggravating. I think this was the last one. Yeah, this was the one that caused the infection. When it came to getting the infection, that was fine. I had the pills for it and all that, but when you take that many pills and it starts to build up over time, you really start to wonder, like, that your body is not that invincible as you once thought, basically, especially coming at the age of, like what I am, basically. I'm in my 30s. So it's kind of like a wake-up call, you've got to take care of your body more often, basically. So then when I got strep, like that was I didn't even know I had strep at the time. I thought I just had like a cold, which kind of like like turned into something else, because I had like a lump at the back of my throat, which basically is one of the symptoms of strep. Basically, it was hard to swallow, it was hard to breathe in a certain sense. I thought it was just like a cold meshed with my allergies that made things so much worse. No, it was straight up strep. And then I learned later on down the line that strep could cause scarlet fever, and it was really high in the winter. Like an awful lot of people around me got it. Like my niece and nephew got it. Thankfully, they're okay. And an awful lot of my friends' kids got them, and I was really frightened for them as well because it's much more dangerous for children. Not like it used to be back in the day. Like this was a killer back in the day, but now with the use of antibiotics, it doesn't clear up the system. So I basically had to suffer with the symptoms for about 5 to 7 days or so, because after the 5 days, the severities of it drops down. But then when you get to the 7th or 8th days, you still get some redness and your skin starts to peel. Like round about the 11th or 12th day, I don't know why it like waited 2 days to do so, but my fingernails were starting to peel. That was a sign that it was kind of coming to the end of its stages. But my god, the first 5 days was one of the worst. Like the day I recorded for you guys, like to tell you of my condition, I was probably in my second or third day or something like that. Or it might have been on the first, I'm not so sure. I might have to go back and check, but it was definitely something that I was really not enjoying. It was like the worst pain I was in. When it spread to my feet, I couldn't walk, I couldn't like shower. Like with hot water, I had to use cold water because it felt like my skin was on fire. And whenever I slept too long on one side, it would always wake me up. So I was basically waking up most of the nights. I was miserable. I was like really frightened for my mum more than anything, and my family, because I didn't want them to come near me, especially my mother, because she has an, like as I've explained, she has an allergy to penicillin, so she can't take the stuff. And penicillin is the thing they give you for the scarlet fever. So I was afraid that if she didn't take the penicillin, some horrid stuff would happen to her. So I tried my best to stay well away from her most of the times, really, which is difficult in itself because me and my family, we're kind of huggers, really, you know, so we miss out on that close contact, really, and it's not really pleasant. But I'd rather like go the 10 days without the close contact than like to hear something happen to my family members, basically. So that is basically the update of my scarlet fever. It has cleared up. I know it's been a while since I said I was going to talk about it, but honestly, I just didn't really want to bring the mood down with the conversation, because I don't like feeling that way in a certain sense. I don't feel like I want to compel people to like pity me in a certain sense. I don't want to do that. I try my best to try and hide my emotions or my pain in a certain sense, because I just don't want to bring people down. I know that's kind of a stupid way of thinking, but that's just how I think half the time. But thankfully, I'm okay now, and as there is the rest of my family and all that, thankfully, my niece and nephew are okay with their little symptoms and stuff like that. So thankfully, that's all cleared up. That is my tattoo story time of the day. It's a rather short one, but there's not much I could add onto it, really. Just little Huginn and Muninn, sorry, I should say. I keep messing those names up. A little story of Rwanda and Randy there, basically. Honestly, I want to go back to Plumpton College sooner or later, just to see some of the staff members and teachers, just to have a little trip down memory lane or something. Maybe I might film my time there as well, kind of show you like the back areas of the ditchling rises that I would go through over the hills when we'd like tend to the sheep and the cows and so on and stuff like that. So yeah, with that, lads and ladies, I thank you ever so much for watching, and hopefully tomorrow after I come back from my swim, I'll probably put up another DVD episode or something else. I'm not so sure yet. I'll have to have a look, because there is actually a book that I'm actually after and I just don't know where to find it. Hopefully I can order it online, but if I can't, then I'm going to have to go to some like back of the boonies bookshops to find it, because it's actually a continuation of a previous book that I want to continue for you guys. So yes, with that, thank you ever so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of whatever I do around here. Take care, my friends.